Hello, everyone. David here. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to the DGR podcast. Today, I have a great guest. I have Luke Tulloch. Luke is a personal trainer. He's someone who you probably know. He's very highly regarded in the industry. He is very successful online coach, online educator. He's taught seminars around the world and who delivers kind of probably some of the best information online. He's big into neuroscience and just reading research and making things understandable, relatively simple, practical, and concise. And he kind of has a niche at doing that and delivering really high quality information. So we talked a lot about that today, how the last couple of years have been for him building his online business, how he approaches his social media, his posts, how he structures his day. And then we kind of dive into a little bit more of the neuroscience side of things, like stress and stuff like that, how it can kill your gains, and a couple of little tidbits around there. I first met Luke. I was actually training in a gym in Sydney that he was working in, and I met there himself and his wife, and they actually came and traveled over to they were traveling around Europe, and they came where I'm sitting right now in my clinic. Was not a clinic there, it was my dad's old shed. And me and Luke were actually pushing flipping like a tractor tire, pushing it against each other, which I have an Instagram video. For my Instagram post, I might actually repost that video if I can. But it does make me look bad because Luke is, or at least back then, he was relatively massive and much massiver than me. And it looked like a baby tire that he was pushing. And then I was like pushing something that wasn't a baby tire. So yeah, it's been great to get to know Luke over the last few years. And actually, to be honest, posting on social media, he was probably a big influence on me, because it was like, okay, I actually see someone that I know here that's gaining a bit of traction, and that's just not afraid to put themselves out there. And at the same time, I know him and I've seen him training, and he's walking around the gym and stuff like that, and he's just a normal guy who's like kind of cool. So back then, or a lot of the time, I think people see people with a following or something like that, and they think, okay, like they're someone different to me, they have a different aura about them, or they have some special secret sauce that I don't have, and that's what allows them to be posting and charismatic and blah 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 on social media. Actually, it's not the case at all. It's just being consistent with things. So Luke was a big influence on me, just to not with the style of post or anything like that, but just to be like, okay, maybe I can do some posts here too, and maybe I can get my message across, and maybe people will like that. So yeah, that was good to kind of catch up and loop around back with Luke on that side of things. So yeah, kind of a varied episode. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And here you go. Make sure and give it a like and a share if you can. Definitely a share it with someone. If you think it was useful, give it a share. And here you go. I hope you enjoy.
Yo.
Hello, sir.
What's up?
Sorry I'm late.
Yeah, all good. It actually worked out because the baby happened to poo herself at the same time as we were supposed to be on, so I needed to change her again.
Okay, cool. I got held up with a client, so we both had a small mini crisis.
Yeah. How's things, mate?
All good. Where are you now?
Gothenburg, in our apartment right now. So yeah,
very good.
Yeah.
Are you still doing your podcast?
I try, but I have a private client podcast. So if I get a chance to do that, then I prioritize that.
Oh.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I've got a private RSS feed. So they basically add the RSS feed to their app, and then it's only people who have that feed can actually get the podcast. Yeah.
You just solved my problem.
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe if I can actually figure out how to do it. But I've been contemplating doing my solo podcast that I do just for my members.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. So I have this whole video library of stuff, but people don't have the time to sit down and watch it. So I was like, what if I just did 15, 20-minute audio things and pushed it to their podcast app? So it's working quite well.
How's your membership site going? Or what is it at the moment?
Yeah, I've kind of dumped the membership stuff for the moment. So just like too many.
Sorry. So that podcast is just for clients?
That's just for clients.
Yeah.
Just for clients. Yeah. Because I had too many directions, too much to promote, too many separate things. So yeah, that's just for clients, and they get like a fair bit of stuff aside from the coaching when they sign up, like access to some of the, or pretty much all the previous material I've done. So if ever I do a lecture or presentation on something, then that's all available to them on a membership site. And then it's obviously the coaching and then the private podcast feed. So that's all going pretty good. Yeah, but just trying to keep it simple for now because my life's, a bit complicated with the kid and stuff. Yeah, so that's all going pretty sweet. How's yours going?
Yeah, it's going good. It's going really good. It's grown a lot. It was going well then. Started off well because I think we have loyal enough people that were like just give us more stuff, and it started off well. And then there was a bit of a lull where I didn't have much clarity around it. I was like, what even is this?
Yeah.
For like 4 or 5 months, and then because I was trying to separate out, I'm like going to teach a big mentorship type of thing where I literally just teach every single thing I know or that's relevant, hopefully relevant to people in like an intensive block. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to teach some of this info in the membership site now. But actually, I realized people kind of need both. They need it like drip fed in here, and then they'll still do the mentorship type of thing at some stage where it's like, okay, just get really into detail with how I implement this type of info. So since I got that clarity around it, it's been brilliant. It's been really good. It's been one of the best things I've done.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, that's good to hear because I often hear about membership sites like not really doing that well.
Yeah.
But I think you're right in that people don't know why they're doing them. They're just like, well, I have people who like my stuff, and so I'll just make a membership site to sell it to them, basically. Yeah.
It sounds great in theory, but then it is hard. Like it is hard to do that constant flow of info, and also people lack a bit of direction on it because like where with a course it's like, okay, week 1, week 2, week 3. Membership site is a little bit more kind of go at your own pace type of thing, I think. So people lack accountability and stuff like that, but I think it just, with all the business stuff, with everything, it just comes back to clarity. Why am I doing it? What do I need to deliver? What's the outcome?
Yep, 100%. I think that's pretty important. It's like as well, I think some people go, oh yeah, membership site, and I'll sell it for $10 a month, and then all I need is X number of people. And it's like, mate, to fucking make a sale to 500 or 1,000 people is difficult, no matter what price point or whatever you're doing. So it's got to be pretty clear as to why they would buy something like that. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. And for us, it's going to feed us into the mentorship stuff. And it's like, okay, if you weren't willing to engage in some of this content, then you're probably not right for the next step. Because actually, the reason I started doing it the way I'm doing it now is I had a chat with Alice, who was one of our physios, and we were talking about creating the mentorship, the full mentorship type of thing. And I was saying, how do I get people to a level where they can even start that? Like where, okay, some people have been so engaged with everything we've done. Some people haven't been engaged, but like aren't at the same level of detail. Like, how do we start to go into all of this stuff from week 1? So then now I'm like, okay, here's some prerequisites that you should know, and that's where they are. So that's what that's for.
That's a cool idea. I've had that problem before with my educational stuff, just people coming in at vastly different levels. So yeah, that's smart.
Very hard. That's very hard. And what's the deal with clients then? What type of clients are you working with?
It's mostly, I think, early to late intermediates at the moment. I have a few advanced people. Like I've got someone doing a WBFF show soon, and I got someone doing like a pretty big powerlifting comp soon, and that sort of thing. But I'd say it's mostly like physique oriented, but not physique obsessed, and which is cool. Or maybe they want to be less physique obsessed. And then, yeah, it's just, I think, mostly about, I would say that people who come to me have just fucking seen too much content, and they just need some simplifying and some understanding of why we're doing something and how to implement it, and then let me just go and actually do it, as opposed to, well, I've seen all this stuff, like what do I do and how do I change it, and that kind of thing. So that's pretty gratifying to kind of be like, well, actually we can strip a lot of this back and we can get better results for you as a result of that. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm typically between like 40 and 50 one-on-one clients, which is like keeps me pretty busy. So yeah.
And that's all online.
All online, yeah. Doing nothing in person at the moment. So yeah.
Are a lot of those other coaches?
Yeah, quite a few other coaches. I would say a third to half of them are coaches.
Yeah.
So
I thought that might be the case because they're going to learn.
A pretty big whack.
It's a kind of an education thing for them at the same time.
Yeah, a lot of them are like, I want to learn and obviously also get my own training and that sort of stuff. So it is pretty fun that way. And then obviously the way you communicate with them is pretty different, which I think's quite fun. Because you obviously, when you got someone like, especially online, the biggest thing you have to learn is how to communicate. You know, like it's not really the programming and that sort of stuff. It's how you talk to them and how you deliver the ideas. So that's always pretty interesting. And so it is cool when it's another coach and you can be like, well, maybe these are some of the things that I was considering, and you can probably go into that to a greater extent with them because they've been in some of those situations before. So it's pretty cool that way and quite gratifying as well, which is nice.
Yeah, I get a lot of that as well. It's a lot of coaches and therapists and stuff who are, even the mentorship thing that I will end up teaching, it will probably be like 10 weeks, very simplified. Like when I don't want people to think that I'm saying it's going to be so complex. It's actually the opposite. It's like very simplified, but there is some basic things that, relatively basic things, like theoretical side of it that you should understand. But at the same time, I'm going to be just like, okay, week 1, here's the program that I'm writing for you to do yourself, to how you train, like, or here's the breathing drills if we're starting on a very low level basis with someone. Like, you need to do these drills, so I'll just write the program for them. Week 2, these are the exercises, all the way up to your plyometrics and all that stuff. So for the 10 weeks, like, or whatever it's going to be, they're actually being trained back up to these levels at the same time, because I think that's probably the best way to learn.
Yeah, totally. And then you get a little bit of like what the client experience is like as well. So you can understand when you're implementing something like, okay, this is what it's going to feel like, and these are the questions I had or whatever, which is so valuable. Like, goes back to what we spoke about before, where like when you get clarity on like, who is this for? What are the problems that they need solved? Well, you know, you're going to get better results for your clients if you've kind of had that first-hand experience. That's why, like, a lot of people, when they go into, you know, figuring out what their target audience is or whatever in business, like a lot of the time it's them from 10 years ago or 5 years ago, because like you understand it and you know where you're looking for information, what you want to learn and what the problems are and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it makes sense for sure.
Yeah. You 5 years ago or 6 years ago you were on the front page of Men's Health Australia.
That's right,
weren't you?
Yeah. I think I was.
When I was coming doing this podcast, like that's one thing. I was like thinking back of all the years I knew you and stuff. I was like, I remember that. I actually didn't really know you then. I was training in the same gym, but I remember that. That was a big deal.
Feels like a lifetime ago, mate. Those times. It's a long time ago. But yeah, that was pretty fun. I didn't think that would happen. And then I think the year before or the same year, I was on some promo for the Disney Channel as the Hulk. How's that?
Yeah. So will you give us the last couple of years, like a synopsis of it, Luke? Because I know you came to Ireland, you trained here with me in this room where I am right now. This is my clinic. This was the shed. So this isn't the gym now. This is the gym. We knocked the walls and all that stuff. So we had the videos of you training there. But so you came and you were going to teach like a European tour of workshops, yeah?
Yeah, totally. So had a few things lined up, and we landed in Stockholm, and I did a seminar in Stockholm over the weekend. And that was the same weekend that all the borders started closing in Europe because of COVID. So we were due to go to Scotland next, and we were planning London and then some Portugal and then some stuff in the States. And yeah, like Denmark closed its borders, and we were a bit like, what's happening here? Do we risk it, sort of thing? And we decided actually just to cancel a few things, and it ended up being the right decision. So I ended up staying in Sweden at my in-laws' place in the south of Sweden for 6 months or 5 months or something. And we kind of decided, like, don't know when this is going to end. So ended up going the long way around to try and stay in Europe. It's not as simple as it might seem, but ended up moving to the Netherlands for 8 months, then came back and have stayed in Sweden since then. And that was March 2021. So I've been here for a bit over a year now, living in Gothenburg, and it's been really cool. But yeah, the world tour kind of got cancelled after the first seminar, and never got back on its feet again. So
yeah, but you did.
Yeah, but it's been like interesting, just obviously being immersed in different cultures and having to face all these different challenges and stuff, and not being able to train like I once did, and all of this stuff. So it's definitely pretty interesting.
You did get to do your tour of Ireland, though.
Yeah, I mean, we had so much fun. We actually got to come visit you guys again now because we're close, so I can come see all the changes. But yeah, we had a mad time just driving around, and yeah, we had amazing weather when we were there. It was really green, and mate, it was sick. It was really cool. I'd love to do it again, actually.
How has the transition been to being fully online then? Because I know you were setting up for that for a while, like. Yeah. Actually, the other thing that came to mind, we had dinner in Waterford in Momo, if you remember. Yes. And we were actually looking at your followers. Did you just pass 10K or something, which was a big deal then, because you put up link in your story.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were looking, 10K, and I had like 1K or something like that at the time. Yeah. And then it kind of went from there, which might be a sad story now after what happened to you the other day.
Yeah, no, I know, but yeah, those were back in the day. You had to 10,000 to put links up in your stories, which is a big deal. And I think I was on like 9.5 for some time, and then I crossed the 10K. It's very exciting. Yeah. I mean, like, it's been a bit of a roller coaster with all of that sort of stuff. Like transitioning to fully online, I think, I was kind of ready to do it. And that's the reason why we were able to travel. Actually, before we left Sydney on this whole tour in the first place, we were having probably the best year of our lives in Sydney. Like, we're just having a mad time. We lived in a cool house with some of our best friends and just having a really good time. So it felt pretty sad to sort of leave, but at the same time, we were very excited because sort of thought to myself, like, we were, so 2019, we were like, just turned 30, 31, and we were like, look, unless we do this travel now, it's probably not going to happen because we'll start to settle down, and then I'll probably regret that for the rest of my life. So it's like, all right, it's financially possible, so let's do it. And at the end of the day, it's been some really tough times trying to work out immigration and all this sort of shit, but really happy that we did it. Got a lot of great life experience out of it, and it's been really cool. So the online obviously allowed that to happen, but it's been pretty incredible how it's sort of sustained itself as well. Like, it's not easy to get online clients, and especially to get yourself started. But I've been pretty lucky that I've sort of not had to work. I mean, I work hard for them, but I haven't had to be too pushy or over the top to kind of keep my client numbers up, thankfully. So, which is really cool. So, the nature of this business, even when you're training people in person, is that it's pretty up and down. I mean, I remember times when I've been in the gym and like you have a month where you just happen to have like 5 or 6 clients cancel at once or whatever, for whatever reason. And you're like, shit. And, the income's gone down a lot, and you're like, fuck, now I've got to scramble to get more people and fill these spots and all that. And then some months it's just like, mate, I had like 4 inquiries this week, and they're all great potential clients and just came on board real easy, and it's been awesome. Yeah. So it is a bit up and down like that sometimes as well in the online world. But thankfully for me, it's been very steady. So it's been really cool that way. And it's worked out well. So I've got pretty manageable numbers, which is nice. I think the biggest thing for me was just finding structure in my day with it all and keeping everything efficient and not working outside of the hours that I that I don't want to work, you know. Definitely someone who was happy working 60 or 70 hour weeks and then realizing like I didn't have to do that, nor should I, but just had this like pressure of like, on myself of you have to work more.
Yeah.
So anyway, the online's been really good for me because it's enabled me to, firstly, I think it was maybe not so good a thing because it kind of ironically cut down my freedom because I felt like then I had to work all the time.
Yeah.
But then, as I learned and kind of got a bit of a handle on that, it's been great because now, for example, with my daughter, I can keep working and I can spend time with her all day and all that sort of stuff as well. So it's been super cool like that. And we can work anywhere in the world, really.
That's the dream. I think when people first think about I had that conversation with someone else this morning. It's like the online, that is the dream for people to be able to go anywhere in the world, make some good money. But like I was saying to him, be under no illusion, like it does take work. And it probably, them 60 or 70 hour weeks, maybe you had to do that to get to a certain stage and then to pull back. I think the first couple of years, if you are going to do online, but firstly, momentum and consistency is the key. Is the key. But consistency is the key, and then once you have momentum, you have to keep that going. I think, especially with the algorithm stuff and all that, just having that momentum is really important. I think, but it definitely can be done. And I've had probably a similar journey to you, where I'm trying to find that structure, then pull it back because. The nature of the beast with online is I can work anywhere in the world and I can work whenever I want, but that's also the bad thing, which is I can work anywhere in the world. So now I'm on fucking holiday and now I'm still working and I'm still doing things. So that is the nature of the beast, and it's quite tricky. How did you find the structure? How did you what is the structure? How do you figure that out?
Well, I've always been pretty routine based and quite like I like structure. So I always did that. I just fucking worked too much, to be honest. Like the structure was right. We'll start in the morning at 6:30 and then we'll stop in the evening at 8 o'clock or something. It's like, okay, that doesn't really work. So I actually ran a little experiment, and I recognized that the challenge for me is not working hard enough. The challenge for me is actually pulling back on work. That's the difficult thing, and that's what's going to make me better. So when I recognized that, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I can kind of use that as like, when you feel like you should be working and you feel bad about that, actually, this is the difficult thing that you have to do, which is quite nice to sort of reframe it. And so what I did is I went, right, if I'm working 60 or 70 hours a week, can I literally cut that in half and still keep my business running?
Yeah.
So it was like an overly ambitious goal that I didn't think I'd be able to do. And I did. Long story short, like I timed everything that I did, every task. I stacked them all together properly. And because the goal was to minimize the time as much as possible, I ended up basically halving my work hours and still getting the same amount done, which is pretty magic. So I've tried to keep that in place. Obviously, it's now hard because I've got the kids. So, I find, you can ask Funny about this as well. If I can be undisturbed or focused on a task, I'm extremely efficient on getting things done. So it's a bit hard now with the task switching and having to get the kid and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's literally just like, what if I could just do it in half the time? And it ended up working. So it was quite cool like that.
Yeah. What's the name of that law? Someone's law where the work expands.
Yes. I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember what it's called.
I don't know the name. Freud's law or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's too many laws. Yeah. I really struggle with structure. Really fucking struggle with it. Because I'm not accountable really to anyone. Like even Kira, she's like trying to always put structure on me, and I don't want to be accountable to her, and she doesn't want to hold me accountable. So it just doesn't work. So I am getting better at it. I really am. But I find that so hard. I think you are more probably naturally structured than me. Well, naturally might not be, but you are better at that than me, definitely. But when I work too hard or I just work longer hours, like the work just gets shit and all my creativity is gone.
Yeah. Well, I think like the way I think about it, it's the same with training and nutrition. It's kind of like you have to find the right amount of constraint. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's context dependent for the person, but like if you have too much constraint, something can be overly restrictive and then it doesn't work. If you have too little constraint, then it kind of gets formless and people just do whatever they want, and so it doesn't work. So it's about finding the sweet spot with it. So like I often tell my clients, like I see two types of people, let's say with a diet. Either it's people who basically have far too little constraints, and so essentially they just do what they want and then they get overweight and they don't exercise and that kind of thing. But I also see the other side of that, where people discover, oh, this, counting my macros or whatever gives me these borders that I can work within. Yeah. And then they get really fit and in shape and all this sort of stuff. And then they end up being so constrained by that they actually end up having the same problem as they originally had, which is finding the in-between. It's finding the balance in between. So we kind of go in and find, okay, well, how can we still have some level of constraint, but maybe just loosen it a little bit for those people? And on the other end, it's like tightening it a bit, but not overdoing it, right? So I kind of see it the same way. Whereas for me, the constraint was really good in saying, like, you've got half an hour on this task to get what you need to do done. But that doesn't really work for other people so well. So it might be just finding something else, right?
Yeah. So talk me through your process for coming up with a post then, or like actually posting something. Actually, before you do that, talk me through your account getting lost first.
Fuck, mate, I don't know what happened. So my Instagram is linked to my Facebook account.
Yeah, same.
And so it was actually my Facebook account that was compromised. And so they've shut down the Instagram as a result of that while they quote unquote investigate the Facebook. But I mean, of course, no one at Meta actually works. Like, it's all fucking AI. So there's no customer service or anything that you could speak to. So essentially my Facebook account is shut down and I can't get into it, which means my Instagram that it's linked to is also suspended while they sort out the Facebook thing. So that's really annoying. I just crossed over 50K, I think. I was on 51K or something like that, which is super annoying. Like you said, I had heaps of momentum going, so that's kind of stymied that. But it's all good. So I started a new one, and
you're back up to 8K. I just
back up to 8K. Yeah. So nearly cracking that magic 10K that we were talking about a few years ago. Look, it's fine. Like, I think when you end up getting a big account, there's a lot of sort of, I don't want to maybe use the word deadwood, but there's a lot of people that aren't really that interested in you. They're just kind of like, oh yeah, maybe I'll follow this guy or whatever. Yeah.
And they don't see the posts anyway.
No, they don't see them anyway, and they don't engage with it, and they don't really care. So it's a little bit of like, put your ego aside. Like, of those 50,000 people, not that many people were actually fucking interested in what you had to say anyway. So does it really matter? And as you know, like, I mean, we've spoken about this before. I know plenty of people with like hundreds of thousands and have a shit business, and I know plenty of people with like 3,000 or 4,000 and they have a killer business, so it doesn't really matter that much. But it's just a bit annoying having to go through that whole process when I'm trying to focus on my newborn baby and my parents visiting from Australia for the first time in 2.5 years. And, just all happening at once was a bit annoying, but
it's just the risk of, we are basically trying to run our business, which parts of our business through an completely external platform that you have no power over.
No, you don't own any of that.
Such a risk.
So the nice thing, which I was really smart about, is that I have a really solid email list, which is awesome. And I also, every single post I've ever made, I have the caption and the actual post themselves saved externally as well. So right now, if I wanted to put back up every post that I'd made on my old account, I could do that, which is awesome without doing it.
I was talking to Kira, I was like, we need to hire a 12-year-old to do this for us, to get every post and every caption.
Yeah.
Shit. That's a really good backup. Like,
you gotta, man, you really got to do it. Because it was pretty funny, but I actually have a friend of mine, Sheridan, who lost her account randomly on Instagram for absolutely no reason, got it deactivated the same week that I lost mine. And so she was also like, hey, what the hell is going on? And having to kind of start from scratch, so to speak. So it happens, you hear about it, but you never really think it's going to happen to you until one day you're like, oh, fuck me. So
fuck.
Yeah.
But look, at least you have at least if you were an affiliate marketer like or selling clothes or stuff like that on Instagram, you will be fucked. But you have your clients.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you have your email list. But
that's it.
Yeah, you have to. You spent 12 months, like 2 years maybe building the business, and the last year has been, revenue wise, we actually haven't grown that much, a little bit, but we've mitigated for a lot of risk, and we've spread it out a lot, and actually we're a way better business now, I think.
Yep. You got to do that stuff. Hey, it's just like, you kind of know that you have to do it, but to actually take the steps is important.
Yeah, it's not sexy, or it's not going to, like, you're not going to be able to buy a Ferrari tomorrow because you took your captions and put them somewhere. But yeah, it's important. So okay, so you're posting. How would you go about doing a post?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll take you from the start. So the first thing is kind of what we've spoken about already. Like, you kind of have to think about who you're speaking to, right? So you have to have a really clear idea of that. And that's fucking harder than it sounds, right? Because I think anytime you do a business or marketing course or something, the first thing they'll tell you is, who's your target market, who's your avatar, that kind of thing. But genuinely, to actually think in the way that someone else thinks is so difficult. I mean, it's impossible really, but you got to try and keep that stuff in mind the whole way through this process. So just bear that in mind. So usually I'll get some sort of idea when, I don't know, I'm just doing stuff day to day. I might be like, oh, that might be an idea I could explore for a post. And so I have a little note on my phone that I just jot something down. Probably 70% of those I end up discarding because I just think it's not really going to fit, but sometimes I make something out of it. So then I got this kind of one main idea that I want to drive home. And my sort of modus operandi on Instagram is the carousel posts. They work quite well for me. I haven't really dug too much into reels and all of that sort of stuff just yet, but a
little bit of dancing now would be, you'd be up to 50K.
Listen, mate, I'm not going to do the dancing. I'm just not going to do it.
But fucking Instagram are pushing the reels so hard.
They're pushing it hard. So I've thought about it, right?
I don't give out about the algorithm. Like, I hear people constantly whinging about the algorithm. It wrecks my head. It's like you have no control over it. But they are pushing that stuff. It is like they're trying to become TikTok, basically.
They are. I think you have to understand what's happening with the platform, but at the same time, like, it comes back to making content that actually speaks to the person that you want to speak to. Like, the quality content is the first thing, not what the algorithm is pushing.
Exactly.
Like, if I'm not really the personality that's going to make some amazing looking eye-catching reel, am I? Like, that's just not me. So yes, if you have a very bouncy, outgoing personality and you're willing to put on some makeup and some special effects, then yeah, sick. Reels are going to do great for you, but like, I'm not going to do that. So fucking carousels are going to work better for me.
And exactly. And the reel for you, like, so ideal length of a reel is probably like 6 to 8 seconds or 10 seconds, right? So like, what are you really going to get across that 10 seconds? And who are you going to attract? Because the type of people that you are going to attract, you don't want a short attention span. You want people who are engaged.
Well, exactly right. So you always got to think about that stuff. So I have my my carousel posts that do really well for me, and so when I have this idea, I think one of the mistakes I made earlier on was trying to fit too much information in the carousel. You go, right, I got 10 slides and a caption, and that didn't feel like enough a lot of the time, but I was still just trying to fit so much in there, right? You feel like you can fill out that space a little bit. And I really found that, like, not thinking so much about a topic, but a question you're trying to answer, if that makes sense. So I might talk about like rest periods during training. There's a million and one things you can say about that. I don't want to fucking go through bullet point by bullet point, which is what I used to do essentially. But instead I want to answer one question, like how long should I rest if I want to grow the most muscle possible? Like, okay, sweet. Now I have some common thread that I can put through every single one of those carousel posts.
What's the answer to that question?
2 to 3 minutes.
Is it?
Yeah, roughly. That's what the takeaway is from the post. There's more nuance to it, which I go through a little bit in the post, but that's what people want to take away. That's what
we're not interested in nuance here. I want straight down the line answers.
But that's what they're looking for on Instagram, mate. You don't go to Instagram for fucking an essay on rest periods, do you? You kind of want to go, well, how long should I rest? Yeah, 2 minutes, that's fine. Like, you know what I mean? So then the carousel creation process, like I get a lot of people asking me what tools I use and stuff. I just use Canva. It took a while to figure out what fonts and color scheme and layout I liked, and that worked well. And essentially what I'm trying to do when I go through that process is I'm trying to use as few words as I possibly can. And if I need to substitute out words for simpler words, then I do it without a second thought, because I used to want to use the fanciest words and the words that I would be attracted to. But I don't say hypertrophy, I say muscle growth. You know, I don't say like whatever. It's use the simpler word, even if it sounds like, you know, a lower grade level, because it should be like a fucking, if a 12-year-old read it, it would make sense. So that's what I go through. Like most of the process is pruning stuff, really. It's just pruning stuff down. And then the caption is a similar concept. So that's kind of like how it goes from start to finish. And then, once it's out there, it's obviously like observing what questions and stuff get asked, because ultimately as a creator, you're going to be recycling content in different ways. So I'm going to be reposting stuff that I've posted about before, like 6 months earlier, for sure. Like if you're not doing that, then you're probably not focused enough on what the actual questions and problems your audience has. So you have to pay attention to what feedback they're getting, they're putting on those posts, and then tweaking it a little bit. So, I have like, how long should you rest for muscle growth? I have like 5 different versions of that same post, because every time I repost it, I go in and I tweak it and I change some of the words and I tweak the caption a little bit. And it's sort of 80 or 90% the same, but it evolves a little bit. So
and are all them posts still there on Canva?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they're all there on Canva. You can just go in, edit a little bit, and then download that.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. So I just make a copy from the last thing, and then I just tweak whatever words or layout changes or whatever I want, and then I download it again, and same thing with the caption, and then up it goes. Yeah.
That's why I think people who don't post regularly think, okay, I'll post for a week and I'll run out of content. And actually, I don't think it ever ends. Actually, the more I post, the easier I find it to post. The more consistent I am, because take a rest period thing, take rest, like rest period. There's, like you said, there's a million things you could say about that one topic. And that's the same with every single muscle group or whatever the hell principle behind strength training or whatever you're going to use. It's the same. There is no end to the questions that you could answer.
100%. And what'll happen is, like, here's something that I think is really handy. If you are afraid of posting stuff, or if you care too much about how well your posts are doing, post more often. Because if you post more often, the quality is going to go down. There's no doubt about that, because you're not spending as much time trying to fucking make it perfect. But you start to get over, like, oh, I made my one big post for the week and it flopped. Shit, now I feel like crap about it, and what am I going to do next? And this next post better be good, sort of thing. Instead, if you're posting like 5 times a week, like, I don't know, if 3 of them are a bit of a miss, you don't really give a shit. And you start to see the stuff that gets more engagement, and then you can basically revisit that and be like, all right, cool. Well, can I improve this post even more? And then like repost it again 3 weeks later, sort of thing, with the same idea, but maybe just like reword it a bit or something. And slowly but surely you start to find what lands and what doesn't, that makes a really big difference, I think.
Yeah, you just learn. Yeah, it's just practice. It's a skill. Yep. It's just skill learning. You start to learn what words work, what kind of videos or whatever you're going to do, what captions work. Yep. I work a lot on my captions. Like I edited a couple of times. I write it. I actually don't. I'm very off the cuff with stuff. Like I just sit down and like, okay, fuck it. I'll just post whatever I was just thinking about with that client. Right. I put it together, post it, write the caption. Sometimes in notes, sometimes on Instagram, depending on how long it's going to be. Press post, read the caption again. I'm like, okay, there's 3 or 4 lines that are just wasted there that don't need to be there. Edit them out, and then an hour later, I might look at it again. And I might edit it a little bit again. So just constantly pruning, like you said. And But I do try and write well. I try and write really clearly if I can, and I try and write like I think of it as every like in the Instagram is like my book of stuff, and then every post is like a little page, like it's just telling its own small little story, and so the caption has to have a beginning and an end to it, and it has to be engaging. And if there's 3 lines in a row or 2 lines in a row, which is just boring, that doesn't add anything, people aren't going to go keep reading.
No.
3 words, they're not going to keep reading.
Yep, I agree. And like that just like takes practice. I used to kind of try and find some resource to tell me how to write stuff like that. Mate, it's just practicing it, honestly, like, and being analytical of your own work. And I think the one idea I keep in my mind is to be subtractive. Like if anything, take something away. If anything else, just take something away. And then you just get better at that, which is cool. But I like what you said there, because if you're struggling for content creation, like one of the things that I think is pretty good is to kind of document your process, so to speak. So like you're saying, it might be something that you just worked on with a client or something you're thinking about with a client. Put that up on Instagram, because ultimately if someone's looking to work with you, like, that's a really good insight into what you do and how you do it. And it'll land with people who are a good fit for you that way.
Yeah, exactly. Your post where you say I was wrong.
Yeah.
What were you most wrong about so far?
Oh, most wrong about? Fuck. There's quite a lot, mate. I used to think a lot of stuff that I don't think anymore, or I've evolved from. A lot of really stupid things. Originally, those posts where I would go, I was wrong, and I would put up like 5 things. And then I realized actually one post should just have a thread you can follow, as opposed to being like, a jumble of different stuff at once. But yeah, I mean, I think probably a lot of the stuff that I was doing in the Poliquin era, I just go back on completely. I think I just had the priorities wrong. I really focused a lot on things like supplements and meal timing and training. I was very focused on like time under tension, and the rest periods is a good example of it. Like I was very focused on them being quite exact and stuff like that. And I think that stuff can matter at a certain level, right? It does make a difference if you tweak that stuff and you go down the rabbit hole. But ultimately there's other things that just matter so much more, that you get so much bigger return on investment for focusing your energy on. And so it's kind of just missing the forest for the trees, really, with some of that stuff. And that's probably the story of my early academic interest in training and nutrition. Whereas now it's, I still have some of that interest, but honestly, in practice, it's much simpler on paper. And I think that's sometimes a bit confusing to people, because if you see someone making what seems to be a fairly straightforward recommendation, it doesn't mean that they haven't gone through and considered all the other permutations and all of that sort of stuff. They've still thought about it. They've just come back to actually, this is what's going to give us the most bang for buck. So yeah.
Poliquin is getting a bit of a resurgence recently.
Is it? I haven't been paying attention, mate. Do you know what? I don't pay that much attention to anything on social media or anything these days, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, some of knees over toes guy and stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Most of that is Poliquin.
Yes.
And then some kind of Edo Portal type of stuff thrown in,
Very
like loaded stretching type of stuff. But look, I think you have to probably understand Poliquin. One, he was like probably an intense guy. Two, he did have exposure to training some high level athletes. And 3, he had to sell courses, and like every course had to have new stuff in it. Yeah. So yeah, and like I think it's important to know a lot of that stuff. Like we're okay at the top level, or if I was looking for 1 more %, I might do some of these things. I don't think the answer. I don't like people saying, okay, I learned that stuff and now I don't use it anymore, so you don't need to learn it. You're talking to a young coach, like, you don't need to learn that. I don't use that anymore. You still have had the benefit of trying stuff, learning it, and then understanding now what doesn't matter as much. And I think I've come across a lot of coaches and courses over the years where they've gone and taken 50 courses, and then they're like, right, here's what I know from that stuff. You don't need to go and learn from any of that because I know everything now. And I think people need to kind of make not their own mistakes, but come to their own conclusion based on, actually, yeah, I have gotten exposed to some of that, and now I realize maybe it's not the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and like it's something where I say this in those posts that I make where I say I was wrong. It's usually not a case of me suddenly just flipping on my head about what I'm saying. It's more of an evolution as I learn more and try more things. And there's got to be something in what I've learned that I now probably don't think is completely correct that has shaped and influenced, even if it is subconsciously, what I do today. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm not opposed to... I think everyone can teach you something, and I'm not opposed to exposing yourself to ideas. You just got to be very self-aware when you do that, right? You can't just go in and be like, oh yeah, sweet, this is the method, and now I just implement the method, right? That's the big thing for me. So yeah, I mean, I actually think Poliquin probably pushed the industry ahead a lot, and I did learn a fair bit from that, but it was also the way it was presented, probably to sell the courses and the supplements, was like, this is how you do things. And I was very much like, no, this is the rules, this is how you do things. And I don't even think Charles himself was like that with how he actually trained people. It was just like how it was presented to us, and we just lapped it up. So yeah.
Yeah. He was a bit of a legend. He was a charismatic man as well. Like,
yeah,
you know, so he definitely got a lot of things right. I think he just went too extreme on things then. It's like, this massively. Is the exact amount of fish oil you need to take. That was like a crazy amount of fish oil.
Yeah.
But he was not even on Tim Ferriss, wasn't he, at one stage?
Yeah, him and Tim Ferriss are big. He used to push Tim's book a fair bit, the 4-hour work week. So
yeah. Even I was like not big into, like, I wasn't big into the kind of bodybuilding world. I was like a Gaelic footballer, and I was trying to use the gym to support that. But even I was like, Poliquin says this, Poliquin says that. You know, and I wasn't interested in taking gear, like, and all this stuff. But yeah, I actually had a conversation completely off track. Conversation with a client this morning who was we were talking about like Rogan and all these guys taking testosterone or whatever they're taking and different things. I have a theory that like maybe a lot of males, when they in a few years time, like a lot of people will be getting some supplementary stuff like that. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's probably already happening in a lot of areas, and it's probably just going to become legally easier. In the States, it's pretty fucking easy to go to a TRT clinic and get prescribed testosterone. Much harder to do in Europe, but I think it's getting more common. So it's just going to be easier and easier to do that sort of stuff, and it's probably more mainstream. I think back in the day, you used to maybe it was like very underground, and you had to be a bit of a psycho to do it. But it's like pretty normalized now, I would say. So definitely think that that's going to happen a lot more. Yeah, I mean, already, I mean, I used to experience it when I was playing footy in Sydney. It's like blokes would go away to Thailand for a month or two in the off season and get a lot bigger and come back. It's like the dumbest possible way to do it, but you know, it happens. Like, so.
Yeah, I think it's going to go that way. I think,
even other drugs as well, man. Like people using, prescription drugs or even otherwise, like recreational drugs for things like stimulants or whatever. Like, there's stories about IFBB pros and stuff using illegal drugs essentially to have good workouts, just like your ultimate pre-workout, right? Just have something a little bit special. And, that's probably the case. And like, you see it as well when I was in the US and exam time came around. Like, there'd be people with their Adderall prescriptions and they would sell half their pills to everyone during the exam period. Like, that's pretty common. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw that sort of thing bleeding over more and more into sport and just training in general, to be honest.
What was it, a post or something you put up recently about stress? Was that today? Stress kills gains.
Yeah, that was today. Yeah.
Can you talk about a little bit about that, Luke? Because I think everyone understands that on some level. Not maybe everyone understands it on some level, but like I have the quote that you put up, and I don't know was it your quote, but you said muscle damage has the same basic healing process as cuts, scrapes, and bruises, which kind of should be obvious in some ways, but we don't necessarily think about muscle damage in that way or muscle growing in that way. And I suppose you could extend out cuts, scrapes, and bruises to the rehab side of things, which is like torn muscles, ligaments, anything else, injuries there. So like, talk a little bit about that, what you learned when you were researching that post, or if you just didn't even need to research it.
Yeah, that was really interesting, because the sort of fundamental healing process is this process whereby the immune system is recruited, and there's a few different stages of wound healing, whether that is some kind of injury like a muscle strain or something else, whether it's a cut, scrape, or a bruise, or whether indeed it's muscle damage. The immune system is going to be recruited, and it's going to go through a basic process of sort of cleaning up the area, a bunch of different inflammatory signaling going on, and then the whole rebuilding process. And all that's kind of mediated through the immune system, right? And when we have elevated levels of stress, what this was actually a systematic review, looked at it. So it looked at a bunch of different studies. It indicated that people with higher levels of stress are going to heal more slowly. And there was another study that I think I referenced in that post where over 12 weeks or something, people actually grew less during a resistance training program, the ones who had higher life stress. So, for me, this is something where, like, why do people respond differently to a resistance training protocol or a rehab protocol or something like that? I mean, there's lots of different reasons, as we know, but one of the factors could be these things that are outside of the training. If you give people the same program, they respond differently. Part of that's genetic, part of it's expectations based, part of it's, whatever. But part of it's probably their level of stress or how they handle stress. And so for me, it's like, well, if we can do something about that, then it should provide us more consistent results over time, because it's inevitable that we're going to experience some stress, right? Like, you're going to have stressful events happen. It's not about trying to avoid them. So we just need to have some kind of strategy in place to deal with stress. And then that means that you don't need to optimize your training program or your nutrition as much. It kind of just gets you better results without you even doing anything. So that's kind of where I'm coming at with this. And one of the things that sometimes when I say stress, people go, well, it's not about like a family member dying or losing your job or your daughter getting knocked up or something like that. It's about probably little things that you don't even realize have an impact on your stress. So there's research looking at what they call daily hassles. Like, literally, that's what it's called in psychology research. And it's literally just the little annoying things that you encounter day to day, like, being a bit late for the bus, or it's raining and you got a bit wet because you forgot your umbrella. You always stub your toe on the same freaking chair whenever you walk past. Like, I got a fucking lamp in our living room that I always bash my head on. Like, always. It drives me insane. So these are daily hassles, and it's small. You don't think that's going to really stress you out or anything, but what the research shows is that stuff actually accumulates, and it has a really profound level on your overall stress. So it doesn't have to be some big stressful event. And so how can we use it? Well, it could just be small things about sort of streamlining your day and removing those little friction points, like getting up 5 minutes earlier so you're not late for the bus, or making sure that your umbrella is right next to the door so you don't forget it, or getting your gym bag ready the night before, or, the list goes on, right? So that's something that I think is so small that ends up affecting your mood, your sleep, your rate of healing if you're injured, or between your training days, your rate of growth if you're looking to grow some muscle. And, overall then, like I say, it makes you just a little bit happier because you're not bashing your head on the same fucking light fixture every time.
Yeah, you should listen to one of the podcasts, the last one or the second last one I did with John Kiley. He spoke about placebo and nocebo, and how like nocebo has a disproportionately powerful effect. And this is similar, where having your having your umbrella there waiting for you every day, so you actually just pick it up, doesn't have a massive positive effect, but the compounding negative effect that this
Yes.
might have of it not being there every single time is having a big negative effect. So, and this is really hard to get this across in the rehab process with people, where you actually like someone has a slightly sore shoulder and you're trying to ask them about sleep. People are starting to understand, yeah, okay, I didn't get a great night's sleep, I can understand how that can have an effect. Nutrition, people are starting to understand, like, okay, people understand words like inflammation and stuff like that. That's starting to come into the consciousness. But then, like, these small stressors that people are just carrying around all the time, they can't really understand how actually a tissue like my shoulder is sensitized, my tissues are just sensitized, a little bit of pain there, and how that will, or not will, but could, like, just amplify any sensitization that is there. And now I go and train and now I have a sore shoulder, and it's not because I just did a certain exercise in the wrong way, it's because of this last 3 days has been constant little stressors that have just made my whole system not as happy to handle load, or just to add on any stressors on top of that. It's so difficult for me to try and explain that to people.
Yeah, but I think a big aspect of that is just that people are so focused on structural origin of pain, right? It's like, oh, I'm getting a pain signal. Well, not really. You're getting a sensory signal that's being integrated in the brain, right? Along with a bunch of other signals. And so if all of that sort of nociceptive data is kind of being integrated with whatever sensory data you're getting from your shoulder, that could make it feel worse, even though there's nothing worse about it, you know? So that's pretty difficult to get to, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. It's kind of getting there. People are getting a bit more open to it, especially as the conversation around mindset kind of improves. Like, that gives you kind of a little bit of an in, but it's difficult. I think it actually starts almost from the beginning with the education process, where it's like, okay, rehab or your pain, and like, this isn't just physios or rehab people. Like, coaches kind of, I know there's a scope of practice, stuff like that, but coaches have to deal with this because their words are powerful for someone. If someone has a little bit of a sore shoulder, you can't say something stupid that will make it worse. Like, but it's just educating from the beginning of that process, of the beginning of the training cycle, that actually it's not linear. It's not just like, okay, you just get a little better. It's actually, there is these ups and downs as we go along. And what I try and always say to people is, like, okay, if you let's say you have back pain and we give you a few exercises, and in a week's time you feel amazing, right? So, like, we've drawn a graph, or actually, let's say for the first week you're getting a little better, and then you just wake up one day, your back pain is gone. I say, being up here doesn't mean you're now 100% and you're perfect. And they're like, yeah, I know that. I need to take it easy and go slow. And then I say, okay, so you also need to understand with me that if you wake up another day and it's really bad or it's sore, being down here doesn't mean you're all the way back to the start and you're broken again. It's just these fluctuations. And I think that kind of, they do it in sales. It's called like objection handling. So you almost say this stuff before they're going to say it to you. And then when they do wake up in pain that day, or their whatever isn't going as well as it could be, it's like, okay, actually Luke said it to me that day that, like, I might have started to experience things like this, and that doesn't get in on top of them. But once the pain is, once that started to happen, it's hard to re-educate that again once they've already have that thought process, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you. It is kind of thinking about what's the little question in the back of their mind that's going to pop up at some point, and can I kind of sort that out before we get there? Because it'll just make the whole process so much smoother, as opposed to being really reactive to everything. Yeah. That's really hard to do, obviously, because everyone's got their own little history and how they think about their own body and injuries and performance and whatever else. So it's always like quite interesting when people come to you, what sort of received wisdom they have. Like, I get loads of people who think, yeah, like, oh yeah, I have to do cardio if I want to lose fat and all this kind of stuff, for example. Or, it's just funny how people go about things. I remember one woman I was kind of doing nutrition with, and this was actually an in-person client. So I got to speak to her like multiple times a week, and she wasn't losing any weight. And I was like, are you you are weighing your food and everything. She's like, yeah. But as it turned out, she wasn't actually putting it in an app or anything to actually track what was in it and hitting her macros or whatever that we had prescribed. So this whole time I'm tearing my hair out going like, fuck, what are we doing wrong? And just turned out that she just was sort of, I don't know, she wasn't weighing her food. That was the problem. She was eyeballing it and going like, yeah, that's 120 grams of salmon. And it was so obvious to me that you got to fucking weigh it. And to her, it was like, no, I'm just eyeballing the portion sizes or whatever on the back of the packet. So yeah, it's crazy. But it was like 3 months of that before we kind of realized it was something as simple as actually weigh it and put it in the app that way.
Yeah. Things usually make sense. They usually should make sense. They should kind of start to add up. Even with pain, like it's so complex, right? It could be a million things, right? But it still kind of should make sense. Like someone, no, look, not always, right? I don't want to say always, but like a lot of the time, okay, we were flying for 4 weeks with your knee rehab. And then it came to, I saw you last Wednesday. And then this Wednesday it came back in and was like, my knee is killing me. And you question them about it and they just say like, yeah, I did a 10K run on Sunday or Monday. And it was like, I told you weren't ready to run yet. So it should make sense. Or another one is like, just, okay, it wasn't actually that thing, but they ended up spending 8 hours moving house and lifting boxes up and down the stairs. So like, it kind of, when you dig in, or I didn't get a good night's sleep or whatever, like things should kind of start to make sense. Now, pain is much less so, but like you still usually see some kind of link to something that's going on or some obvious thing that you could make a change at that in people's training. And like you said earlier, subtraction, usually it's just, okay, let's just take that and you can keep training, you can do all this stuff. Maybe we just need to take out this thing that your body clearly just doesn't love at the moment.
Yeah. I think the general idea overall in everything is just that concept of a sanity check, which is something that they use quite a lot in like, mechanical or computer engineering, where if you just do a quick back of the napkin math, does it check out? Like it's not going to be completely accurate or it's going to miss some things for sure. But if we can just do a little quick thing, like, does it make sense? Does it check out? Just do that quick sanity check first. And it's kind of related to Occam's razor, I guess, which is all else being equal, like the thing that has the least variables attached to it is probably the truest because you're making less assumptions. So exactly right. It's like you can make all these assumptions about why someone's knee is hurting, but it seems simplest to just go, hey, they did a big run 2 days ago. Like that's probably what it is.
What's the obvious
and we did the
thing
same
there?
thing with the fucking baby, man. Like you have no idea when you have a newborn how many different opinions and things you're going to hear and how confused you're going to be as a parent. And so we were getting all this advice and you feel really stupid, but you're obviously new to it and you're sleep deprived and stuff. And our baby was like really crying her head off and having lots of tantrums and stuff. And we had her on this like sleeping and eating schedule or something that we got recommended. And then the midwife who helped us out came by and she's like, well, your baby's going to be hungry when she's hungry. Why don't you just feed her when she's hungry? And then even if it's, half an hour after she just ate. And we were just like, yeah, obviously. Why are you trying to feed her every 2 hours? Just feed her when she's hungry. And I feel like the biggest idiot, but sometimes it is something so obvious when you step back, like it just makes sense.
That's why you need a coach. The midwife is just someone who can emotionally separate themselves from the situation and say,
exactly, man.
Hang on, what's going on here? Yeah. But we're human beings are incredibly poor at doing that for our own situations. We can't. All of us, especially me, very hard to do. So that's why people need coaches, I think. I think that stuff applies with like the stress stuff applies with. I remember I asked you a question on Instagram, or someone asked me a question a couple of years ago, and I asked the nutrition side of things. I know you're not a nutritionist, but the injury nutrition and this stress stuff, I think applies to it because people hurt themselves. They get hurt, whether they're injured or just a little bit of pain or whatever, and they can't train as hard maybe. So they're already stressed because they're like, okay, I'm not getting closer to my goals, blah, blah, blah. And then they stop eating as much. Yep. So it's like, okay, I don't want to put on weight. Now I'm not eating half as much food. And then my system is even more stressed. And how do you actually expect healing to take place in that kind of a situation? And it just rumbles on and on and on.
Yep. 1,000,000%.
So injury nutrition, eat more.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah, you do see it all the time. People are really afraid of getting fat, but it's like, mate, the first thing I'm concerned about is like, is that broken arm going to heal? And then we can worry about if you're fat after that. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's funny how your priorities get a bit mixed up sometimes, but you do need just that external perspective sometimes to be like, hey, this is actually what makes sense. And you go, oh yeah, actually it does make sense like that.
Yeah. Okay, brother, final question.
Mm-hmm.
My generic one: 3 people on an island with you that you want to, not family, not babies, that you'd like to learn from, for like, you're going to be there on a desert island for a full week. Who would you take with you?
People that I want to learn from. I think
you don't have to learn from. Actually, no, I'll take out learn from. Just 3 people.
Out learn from.
But
interesting people.
Interesting people, let's say.
Interesting people. I'm going to go with Stephen King as one of them. Had a bit of a life, hasn't he? So I think that would be very interesting to learn from, just from a writing perspective, and also just a generally interesting guy. Let me think about a sort of sports person that would be pretty fun. I think Tyson would be fun. I've been getting into the F1 a little bit, so I think Danny Rick would be pretty fun to have on a desert island. He's a very happy bloke and pretty funny, so that might be pretty good.
See who you support when you're watching?
I do like him because he's Aussie, you know what I mean? But I got to be honest, I'm pretty happy with some of the guys from the sort of historically worst constructors doing pretty well, like Magnussen coming back and doing really well. It's sick to see Bottas doing well.
Yeah.
Now that he's moved on.
Bottas is a legend. He's grown on me so much.
Yeah, I love the bloke. He's really cool. So I think any one of those guys would be pretty fun, but they're mostly like pretty chill, I guess. So I think the personality with Danny Ricciardo would be pretty fun. And then I'm trying to think of like maybe a musician or something. I remember actually, I don't listen to much Joe Rogan, but he did have Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins on back in the day. And it was very interesting how he chatted about the music industry and his creative process and stuff. And someone else I actually really liked was, I think, is it Shirley Manson from Garbage? She... that was really interesting because I don't know if you ever listened to any Garbage, but like back in the day, they had an album come out that was like the fucking album. This would have been early 2000s. It was huge. They were headlining every festival on the planet. And then their follow-up obviously didn't do so well. And so it was so interesting listening to her talk and being like, yeah, you one week you're like the man or the woman. And then a year later, it's like, shit, how do we replicate that? So I found that really interesting as well. So maybe a musician like that would be cool as well. So I got a nice little mix of people there.
I like it. That's what happened with Lower Body Basics. Perfect time during COVID, so it's just like downhill from there.
Yeah, it's hard, mate. It's hard. That's why the consistency is the toughest part, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, where can people find you, Luke? Get you back up to 50K. Not through this podcast now.
Come on, mate. I'm relying on you. The new one is Coach Luke Tulloch. And you can also go to luketulloch.com if you want to check out any stuff there. I've got like a little mini course. If any of you is listening into some resistance training, bodybuilding type stuff, then there's a little free mini course there that you might sort of get some of my ideas out of, from training to failure and how to set up your training. But that's pretty much it, man.
If no one hears a solo podcast from me again, they can blame you.
Except
for my members.
Yeah, that's cool. If you have questions about it, then let me know.
I definitely will. All right, Luke, legend. Thank you very much.
It's been awesome, mate. Cheers.
Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Luke. Don't forget, you can sign up for our member site, DGR Interactive. You can get 20% off right now. Use the code DGR Podcast. If you want to get a full year's worth of support from me and Kira and Alice and Chris and basically all the 500 other members that are in the group, we've had a ton of members sign up over the last week or so. Yeah, it's incredibly cheap price for the support and the content that you get. Here's an example of a few of the videos. I'm just looking at them now, some random ones. The biomechanics of plyometrics, early, mid, late stance and max propulsion broken down, curved running, muscle slack and deadlifting, change of direction, co-contractions and freezing degrees of freedom. Internal rotation is a down force, top down versus bottom up, where to start. Sports specificity, knee extension case study, assessing online clients, assessing and treating online clients, a webinar that I did a couple of years ago. That's up there. Gait section. What's in the gait section? Alternation of hips and gait. One hip forward should equal one hip back, but it doesn't. Neck and jaw, practical class, neck flicks and chill. Practical clip of me actually treating Chris's jaw and neck, giving him a couple of exercises for that in an online session. Just uploaded it there so you can see me actually working with him there. Reaching 101, breathing, pump handle and causing more compression. So much stuff up there. That's like a tenth of the stuff, and they're all short videos, 5, 10, 15 minutes long. You could dive in once a week over a coffee. That's what a lot of people do, twice a week over a coffee. Sit down 10 minutes in their lunch break and watch something, and they're smarter. So if you don't want to get left in the dust, in the rear view mirror of all the people that are 500 people that are learning with us every week, then you probably should go and sign up there. So DGR Interactive is where you need to type into your Google or Safari, if you use that, and use the code DGR Podcast for 20% off. This discount will not be lasting for much longer. This might be the last podcast. Don't quote me on that, but I am going to, because it's just too cheap. So I am going to take that off. We've got the 500 members very, very quickly. And now might be your last chance. So DGR Interactive, and I'm going to talk to you guys soon.